CLNS Media Patriots Roundtable. I'm your host, Nick Qualia, sitting here with Marv and with Mike Molyneux. Patriots season, the players are starting to report in the coming weeks, and we've got a schedule that I wouldn't be shocked if it changes, but we've got a schedule kind of laid out of when things are going to happen. And if there's one takeaway from that schedule, guys, it's that this is going to be some wildly sloppy football over the first few weeks of the year. No preseason. There's I think 8 to 12 padded practices, and then you guys are just going to play football games. There is going to be some sloppy ass football in these first few weeks of the season. But looking at the Patriots, I feel like when Jarrett Stidham was predicted, assumed quarterback, there was some level of optimism from some people. I think we kind of tried to. There was a little bit. We were trying to talk ourselves into it, but now that Cam's here, the level of optimism has taken a massive jump. 2015 MVP. Cam Newton. But looking at the rest of the team, is there any other reason other than Cam to be optimistic about this New England Patriots team? If there is a reason to be optimistic about this New England Patriots team, just again looking around the roster, what is that reason for optimism? Marv, let's start with you. What do you think?
Yeah. When you look at this Patriots team, one thing everyone spoke about, and one thing we already knew going in, was this defense is solid. It wasn't as high-powered as it looked when they were 8-0, but they were still a good defensive team. One thing that they were lacking was they were slow. They were a slow team. Once they started facing speed and started facing quarterbacks that were mobile, like a la Lamar Jackson, or you started facing running backs who can catch from the outside, you could see that the linebackers weren't up to speed. The Calvin Noyes, Hightower.
They're old, too. They were an old defense.
Now you're talking about a linebacker crew led by Chase Winovich in the up and coming, having a new coming of linebackers. You got Chase Winovich going into his second year. We see how the energy he brings to the team. And you draft Uche and you draft Jennings. And especially Jennings, I'm very excited for. A guy in Alabama 4 years, and he gets to the ball carrier. So I think that this linebacker core right here with these young guys is something to really look at and be optimistic about for this Patriots team, because you're bringing in new blood now. Like Nick said, this team was older. The Calvin Noyes, those guys were great enough. But once they started talking boogeymen, we started to see how slow they really were. They were really moving. So you're going to bring in some new heat onto this team, and they're versatile as well. You know how Belichick likes his linebackers versatile. Sometimes you might see them all the way up to the safety line like Jennings, or sometimes you might see them on the defensive line like Uche, or Chase Winovich. So I like how versatile this linebacker crew is, and you still got Hightower there, who's like the quarterback of the team on the defense, who can direct and lead the way. So that's what I'm excited about.
And I mean, just based off what they did last year and who's returning, and you've got a Madden 99 overall playing cornerback for you in Stephon Gilmore, which, by the way, when that came out, and I tweeted this out, I still love, and I'm one of the idiots too, okay, but I still love that when Bill Belichick went out day one of free agency, threw a ton of money at Stephon Gilmore, people were like, are you kidding me? What about Malcolm Butler? You got a guy here. And now we're watching the best cornerback in the league. So I don't know. Listen, I don't know how Bill Belichick does this. But Bill Belichick knows when a guy is going to be an absolute stud, and he found that in Stephon Gilmore. And just him alone should give you that confidence in the defense. Mike, reason for optimism, A, is there any? And B, what is it?
I think there's definitely now a reason for optimism much more than there was before when you look at the current group of wide receivers that this team has. I said it on the show that we've previously done that. Obviously, you look at the guys that the Patriots have at that position. Are they, top 5, top 10 in the league? Probably not. But at the same time, you're looking at a lot of guys on this roster that play wide receiver that have a lot to prove. Julian Edelman, who was, Tom Brady's go-to guy for the last couple of years, and in being so, turned into probably one of the better wide receivers in the league, and you know the numbers that he's had in the postseason over the years. Now that Brady's gone, is he still that guy that has been putting up those numbers over the years? You have a guy like Mohamed Sanu, who was a pretty solid receiver throughout his career, but you know he came to New England last season and just injuries slowed him down and hampered. He just looked like a bum, and a lot of people were upset, or still probably upset at why the Patriots acquired him last season when they could have got somebody else. He has a lot to prove. N'Keal Harry, the Patriots don't usually take chances on wide receivers so early in the draft, and when they have in the past, it hasn't worked out. But people are still waiting to see if N'Keal Harry is that guy that the Patriots saw, and can he possibly turn into something that can develop with this team over the next couple of seasons. When I look at the wide receivers, again, I'm looking at a group of guys, and those three names specifically, that have a lot to prove. Obviously, you know, you go further down the depth chart, you know, was Jacoby Myers, could he still be a piece maybe? I don't know. You go down the line of other guys that they brought along who are just trying to make it on the team or stay on the roster or whatnot. But I think of those top three guys, those three names, they have a lot to prove. And my optimism is pretty high because I think when you have a combination of a quarterback already in Cam Newton who's coming in with a lot to prove, a team already with the head coach and an offensive coordinator who have a lot to prove because their all-time great QB is now gone, can they still be successful? The Patriots season and players on this team just have a lot to prove all around. And I'm optimistic, especially when I look at those wide receivers, those top three guys who I figure to see at the top of the depth chart going into the season.
See, and there's another question mark in the wide receiver group in Marquise Lee.
That is true.
Right, he's on the Patriots roster now, and he's a major question mark. I think that if he pans out the way that he potentially could, you've got a weapon that you got on the cheap. But if he doesn't, then he's just another guy that the Patriots brought in who didn't work out at the receiver position. I was going to talk about, I was bouncing back and forth between receivers, offensive line, and the running backs. So you already grabbed receivers. I'm going to go with offensive line because I think it ties in with the running backs. And I think there's a reason to be optimistic because as it stands right now, they're healthy. And I will say this until I die. This Patriots offensive line, the way they are put together right now, is one of the top, I'll say 4 best offensive lines in the NFL when they're all healthy, when they're all clicking. I've got a lot of high hopes on Isaiah Wynn as long as he's healthy. Joe Thuney is one of the top 2, I would say, best in the league, at least top 3 best in the league at left guard. David Andrews is coming back. Hopefully he stays healthy. Obviously, you worry about him with the COVID issues. Shaq Mason have a bounce back year. Marcus Cannon have a bounce back year. If that offensive line can click, not only you're going to protect Cam Newton in his first year in New England, probably his only year in New England, but we talk about this all the time with Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel has a lot of talent, but his success is all based on how the offensive line plays. We saw that 2 seasons ago in the playoffs. When that offensive line went on that playoff run where they were spectacular. Sony Michel also, at the same time, had a spectacular run throughout those playoffs, and a lot of that is because of how good that offensive line played. So if the offensive line plays the way that they can play, because there's a ton of talent across the board there, not a lot of depth, but there's a lot of talent there across the board, then your running backs are also going to see success, especially a guy like Sony Michel, who's entering year 3, definitely had another down year last year, so you hope that he can step up this year in year 3. But if the offensive line plays well, again, Sony Michel has a good chance to really show up this year and not be a disappointment on my fantasy football team. And then you still have James White. And you've got Damian Harris.
I like that guy.
Unleash Damian Harris.
Unleash him. I would love to see Damian Harris have a breakout year in year number 2. That would be excellent. It probably means a guy like Rex Burkhead may be gone. See ya. But honestly, whatever. If those 3 guys can produce, that's going to make this offense that much more lethal. You're dual threat. You've got a running game and you've got a passing game, hopefully, as long as Cam Newton is healthy enough to throw the football consistently. So that is my pick, offensive line. If they are healthy, it's only going to help improve the running game and improve that offense. It's going to make, I think a healthy offensive line will take that offense and move them a full step forward.